Hello everyone, I'm Beatrice and I'm really happy to be here today with Cora. Hello Cora.
Hello Beatrice.
So Cora, I have to be totally honest with you. It's my first episode in English.
Okay.
So I hope that you'll be very indulgent because I have a terrible French accent and I hope you don't mind. So Cora, let me introduce you just in a few seconds. So you have a VP Learning and Development of a major group called Sage.
Yes.
Am I pronouncing it right?
Yes, Sage.
Okay, Sage is a British provider of business and software solutions.
Sage is actually the first UK technology company, and Oracle and SAP are American.
Thank you very much for correcting me. So first, Cora, I have usually a very common question that I love to ask you is what did you like to do when you were a child? Did you project yourself in a specific job when you were a tiny little girl?
Yes. So I wanted first to be a journalist, and a journalist that would be, involved in very adventurous situation, like, in war zones or, So I was very eager, I think, to have a very intense life. And then I moved from willing to be a journalist to willing to be a lawyer. Supporting others to defend, their situations or causes that I think would help probably saving the world. So wow. I had very high ambitions, I think.
I love that. So first you wanted to become one day a journalist covering the war or tough situation. Did you were impressed by specific journalists? Because when I was younger, I used to watch on France Télévisions, on the two, a journalist called Agnès Varman, who used to cover Iraqi, Afghanistan war and so on. Did you have a specific someone in mind, like Albert Londres?
No, not specifically a journalist. I think I was just, excited about what I thought the job would be and how much probably excitement it would create and, the unknown part.
The epic
probably.
Life, okay.
Yes.
And then, you switch for advocate, becoming a lawyer. Yeah. Is it something that you pursue during your studies or did you change your plan?
Yes, so when in France, when you are around 13, 14 years old, you have a 1-week internship, and I did it in a law firm, and I realized that this is not what I wanted to do. So, I was sitting in that law firm and I was watching what they were doing and all the books. And
it looks quite boring.
And it looked quite boring, like not like the exciting life I was.
Did you watch Ali McBeal show? Because it was my generation and we used to love Ali McBeal and we thought, wow, it looks so cool to be a lawyer.
Exactly, yeah. So I was probably picturing something like in the American movies, and this is not what it was.
And what kind of student did you were? Were you very calm, very at the first row of a classroom, or more?
Yes. Right? I was, I think, very diligent. I was always on time. I was always doing my homework. I had good grades. I was the one asking, Hermione in Harry Potter? My friends are always laughing at me saying that.
Very good reference.
Yes.
Okay. And what did you decide to do just after the graduation?
Well, I honestly had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went into business school studying marketing. And for a number of years, I thought that I, would go and do, marketing job, which is what I did. That was, first jobs that I did at Dell and then Microsoft. And I worked in an event agency as well, organizing events, and then started at Sage in a marketing role as well. At the time when marketing was about, doing brochures and
not so far ago.
And, websites were a very tiny part of what we were doing. I went into marketing because I wasn't, there was nothing really that was appealing. And what I liked about marketing was the fact that it was about working in groups. It was about understanding what the customers wanted and how to get it to them. And so it was a lot about, doing research, understanding what, the needs were, gathering insights, and then finding out a solution that would help customers understanding what we have for them.
Like a detective.
Yeah, probably.
And you have a big love story with Sage, because I look at your resume online on LinkedIn and I found out that you were in Sage for about 18 years,
Yes.
am I right?
Yes.
So what was this journey? Can you tell us what was your first job at Sage, and how did you build your career?
Yes. So I started in marketing in one of the French business units that was looking after our mid-market customers. So mid-market are those organizations that are a bit bigger than SMBs, but not yet a big company. And what is funny is that I started there and I had the choice between joining Sage or joining Adonix, which was another French software organization. I went for Sage because I really liked the culture through the interview process and the people I spoke to. And 3 months after, we were buying Adonix, and the team joined us, and I ended up working with those teams as well.
Always better to be in the company who buy out to be bought.
I think what it says is that my destiny was with Sage anyway. Started in marketing, did a few years in this role. And then as we were acquiring more organizations, the job started to specialize. So I specialized in communications, PR, public relations, content development, which we were not calling content development at the time, but this is what it was, writing white papers and again, talking to customers to understand what it is that, they would need to hear more from, get advices on, and then started to work on internal communications with the manager director of that business unit at the time that was quite keen to have an internal comms program because, again, we were growing through acquisitions and we needed really to have a way to integrate the different parts. And so that was my way of entering internal comms. And that's when I started to realize how much I like the people side of, the communication and the, importance of leadership in the way you drive a transformation. And so as we grew, I, spent more time in this comms role, looking after external and internal comms, and then started to be involved in change management, but the people side of change management. So did a bit in change management, and that led me into HR. So
you make it look very natural, but how did you manage to climb up the ladders? Is it thanks to mentors, thanks to opportunities? Don't tell me just a matter of luck.
There's always a bit of luck, but yes, mentors, definitely. I've been lucky enough that I've had really mindful people and caring people around me at work that were keen to help me, going through those changes. And I think a lot of curiosity as well, because I was asking lots of questions about, how things were going, what it is that was needed. And that's what also helped me understanding this is where we're going as an organization, this is what we need, and this is the impact I can have through my job. And I've always, up until very recently, I've always been into roles that were new roles. And so I've been able to shape those roles in a way that would help me having impact for the organization, but also help me going where I wanted to go.
And you were unafraid about that? Because lots of women, especially young women, have sometimes the feeling that they have imposter syndrome, something like that. Yeah. And I see that you have widened your options. First you were in marketing, then communication, then change management.
Yeah. Yes.
Always in a new position. You didn't have this imposter syndrome. You were confident about yourself, or people make you feel confident?
So I've always had the imposter syndrome. I probably still have it today. And I've always been scared as I were going through those changes. Again, having the right network around me really helped me. And what I've learned as I were making those changes, and probably one of the most impactful change that I've done, that has been probably the hardest as well, is when I moved into HR, because moving from marketing to comms, there are lots of similarities. I was doing comms as part of my marketing role, so it was about being a greater expert in the space. Moving from comms to change management was already a stretch, because change management has very specific techniques, theories, mechanisms that I've learned through, working with experts in the field. And then moving into HR was another really stretch, probably the biggest.
Whole different world.
Because there's a whole world of, rules and governance and legislations, and across many different countries, like it's multiplied. And that's the move that's been the hardest and the scariest for me, because I was afraid of making a mistake that would have major implications on either colleagues or the organizations or leaders in the organization or even myself, right? So I spent lots of hours learning and studying and doing courses. And also Sage is a big organization, so I've been able to leverage a lot the expertise in the organization. An example being, my first role in HR was to lead the HR function for a European business unit, so 1,200 colleagues across 8 countries. But I was leading a team of HR specialists and HR business partners. And so I've been relying on them heavily, because they were the experts, and they knew what were the rules and the legislations in the different countries. They knew how, to run an HR business in the business, right? So I was relying on them. And it made me realize at that point that what was needed from me wasn't necessarily the deep expertise, but it was the leadership of the team and the ability to also understand what the business needed and how that would translate into HR plans and execution.
And Cora, you weren't just a fresh graduate at the time when you arrived in the HR world. You also have a strong expertise in communication and marketing. Did you bring that on the table, and how did it influence your way of handling HR issues, HR challenges?
Yeah, so I think communication skills are probably one of the best skills to have in your bag, whatever role you do. And especially when you manage a team or when you manage a project. Because when you lead a team, 70% of what you do is communicating, either downwards to your team, upwards to your management, or to your peers. When you manage a project, it's the same, right? And no one works alone these days, so we all need to communicate in one way or in another. So the ability to know how to understand your audience, who you're going to talk to, how do they want to see stuff communicated to them, what's going to have the biggest impact, and how to do it in a way that's going to be impactful. I'm using this every day. And as I moved into HR, one of the first jobs that I had to do was to lead a organizational transformation. And so communication is key, because you need people to understand why you're transforming, what the impact is going to have on them, what's going to happen at what point, what are the opportunities for them. And you need to be super clear in how you do that.
Make me feel about Simon Sinek, who is always talking about explaining the why.
Exactly.
For your team, your people. And I just wanted to go back to a specific point that you mentioned just a few minutes ago. You were talking about how powerful was the culture of Sage. Mm-hmm. For me, Sage is also a sum of acquisition of lots of different companies with various culture. How did you make it work? How do you create a common culture? And perhaps first, can you explain what is the Sage culture?
Yeah. So at Sage, we have a number of values that are very grounded in everything that we do. And these are, we do the right thing. That this is our overarching value, which is about, making sure that we do what is right for our customers and different stakeholders. And we do it in a way, with integrity, with ethics. So it's about doing the right thing. And then we have bold, simplify, human, and trust. And these values guide the decisions that we make. They guide the behaviors that we expect from each other in the organization. They guide everything that we do. And we do a lot to really, help people understanding what they are and how to role model these in everything that they do. Sage is a very caring organization. Caring has 2 cents, and especially for, those maybe non-English native people that might be listening to the podcast, caring is not just about being nice. Sage is very friendly. We need to be a bit more, direct in the way we talk with each other, because we care in a nice way about each other, but sometimes we struggle, having that more direct conversation. Sage is a very friendly organization and is really deeply caring about its customer. And what really, we've been able to, you test your culture in a crisis. And during the pandemic, what was very clear is that people highly valued how we've been, taking care of them, how we've been listening to what it is that they needed, and we've been responding to their feedback instantly. We've put a listening strategy in place where our CEO was talking to our colleagues every 2 weeks. We're still doing this.
Wow, that's great. Every 2 weeks?
I think he's talking now every
that's
month.
Wonderful.
But
that's great.
Yeah, the leadership, the top senior leadership team is talking to colleagues regularly. And we've done the same with customers. And everyone is highly valuing this, right? So it's very friendly, very caring. We're empowering people to, experiment and innovate and, do their jobs. So it's not perfect. It's not rosy every day. Don't get me wrong. But it's a very nice organization to join. And that's why I'm still here after 18 years.
But I really think that culture is really crucial, especially when you are in a competitive industry. Culture is a competitive advantage to attract candidates, to attract customers, to keep people moving on, having energy. It's crucial. Perhaps I will focus on your department because let's talk about L&D. A few years ago, a few decades, the L&D department was not considered as important as today. How the COVID crisis did it change your department? And what are your organization today? Did you have a team? What kind of skills do you have in hand?
So I've been leading the L&D team for 2 years. Prior to that, I was leading our culture transformation, so still in the same team, but different role. And that team was led by someone that has then left the organization, but it was slightly different back then in a sense that it had what we still call today a COE, so Center of Excellence, and then the L&D business partners were regionally based, let's say, so they were reporting to the different regions. So it was a decentralized team. And so the COE would build a number of programs that would then be rolled out globally and picked up by the different regions that would also have their own program regionally. So that's how it worked. They've done an amazing job back then to help moving our trainings from being more face-to-face type of trainings to, embrace the move to digitalization of learning and e-learning, which they had already started to do, but it's just, they've just accelerated this because this is what happened in every organization, given that people couldn't be in the same office, right? Since I've been leading the team, so I have a team, to answer your question, a team that is made of 3 major pillars, let's say. One pillar, which is the L&D business partners. So the L&D business partners, as you would expect, are, supporting, functions or regions to understand what are their needs, and then make sure that, the relevant team build the right solutions to answer their needs.
Consulting,
and then they deliver the trainings in the regions or for their functions. That's one pillar. The other pillar are academy leads. So these are the subject matter experts, let's say, on a topic. Could be leadership, could be innovation. And they define what skills are needed in that particular area for Sage because of our business strategy, because of our culture, our values, because of what we see out there is trending and what do we think is relevant for us to capture as well. So they define the skills and then they work on what are the best solutions for us to develop those skills depending on the audiences that we're targeting. They work obviously with the L&D business partners to understand, also what's coming from the regions or the functions. We prioritize and then we build the solutions and then we work with the L&D business partners to roll out those solutions or third vendors to help us as well. So these are the academy leads. And then I have a team that looks after the experience, technology and enablement of the rest of the L&D function.
And what are the skills inside your team? Are you more focused on expertise, on people coming out of the blue, not especially experts in learning?
So you mean in the L&D function?
What type of profile do you have?
Yeah, it's mostly people that have deep expertise in learning. That's the majority of people that are there, which I would say is very useful for me because I don't have an L&D background. So, I came in there for different reasons, back to what we were talking about earlier. But yeah, so it's really great that, we've got experts in the space that are able to run.
Very clear. And what are your key challenges or the key topic that you want to address? You're a software company, so perhaps you're more focused on hard skills, new technology, but do you also train on soft skill? Do you find a balance between the both?
Yeah, we do both. So we obviously have to look after, what we call functional skills, or so the product team will have specific needs for, engineers and developers, and whereas marketing will have specific needs for, marketers, sales will have their own needs. So this is handled by the different areas of expertise, and then we also focus on soft skills. And soft skills at the moment our areas of focus are leadership, mainly people management, because, leaders today really have to, help their teams going through the environment we're going through at the moment. So the transformation, the change with the drive that is necessary to continue delivering in such an environment, but also the empathy that is required to help people navigating through change in a way that is sustainable.
Very clear. And do you have a specific learning culture? Because a few months ago, I was talking with Nicolas Potier, the VP Learning of L'Oréal, who explained me at L'Oréal, they were very cautious about the design, the aesthetic of an e-learning. On the contrary, when I was talking with Thales, Thales is an engineer company. What they wanted is to show experts. You have a specific culture inside Sage?
I would say that we haven't necessarily defined it in that way. I think we're more looking at the experience that people are going through. Like, is the experience really valuable? And what is the impact of the learning? So that's something that I'm working on with my team at the moment, which is, it's great to have great learnings. It's great to have a number of people going through those learnings, but is it really having the impact that we want? So
I think that we reach the stage of maturity regarding learning, and now that's why we are talking about KPI, ROE, and so on. But it's really tough to measure it well, how this impacts the daily life and so on.
Yeah, it is hard, and this is where my marketing days are helping, because marketing is all about measuring the impact, right? So it is hard, but just back to the previous question, and then we can talk about measurement. I think we're keen at Sage to make sure that we adopt a continuous improvement mindset in how we build our learning and how we think about it. So we're going to pilot something, we're going to test it before we roll it out, and then I'm really keen that as a team we think about not just thinking about the experience, not just the training itself, but how people are going to be given the opportunity to practice the skills in a safe space as well. So we're we've started to build a number of communities of practice. We have what we call dojos, where people can come and practice,
Is this in digital or in
virtual environment? Yes.
Can you explain for us the concept of dojo in Japanese? Huh?
Yes, and it's basically a learning space, let's say, that people will join and will be given an opportunity to practice feedback, for example. We're looking at feedback at the moment. That's a very heavy focus. So looking at, bringing people into, a session where they can come and say, I need to have a difficult conversation with someone in my team. I would like to practice it.
So it's like an online workshop with an expert.
Yes.
And you are in a safe space to practice a specific.
Yes.
Okay,
exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we're testing things like this, and then we're measuring whether the skills are growing. So back to the point around measurement, it is hard to measure, and we need to be mindful as well that training is just a component of someone being performing in their role, right? The whole environment, the ability of the manager to help that person growing, like this, but we still need to measure the impact. So what we're doing at the moment is we're measuring the reach of our training. So are we reaching the people that we were aiming to reach when we set our objectives at the beginning of the process? Is the NPS where we want it to be? So are they satisfied with the experience? Then we're measuring if the skills that we established we needed to grow at the beginning, and it has to be discussed at the beginning of the process, right? Are those skills growing? So we're doing a pre-post assessment that you can renew after 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, just to measure how this is growing. And we're also measuring the application of the skills. So are they applying the skills that they've been...
And how did you do the last part?
On application, exactly. It's self-declaration.
Self-declaration?
Yeah, at the moment. It's early days, so we're just
No, but I'm really interesting because what I heard that self-assessment were very, very impactful at the beginning of a training and after a training, but I was wondering, how do you measure in the aftermath? Did you put it into practice? So you do it? Just a quick question. Did you put it into practice after your training just a few days ago or something like that?
Yeah, we're going to do it 90 days after.
90 days after.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And in your training, do you have some micro-doing or something like that?
Yeah, we've got micro-learnings and tasks. And
very interesting.
Yeah.
So, Cora, can you tell me, how do you manage to handle your different sphere of interest? As you say, you were very involved with your family, you have a management position, you're also a marathon. How do you do that?
Yes, so first of all, my kids are the priority. I've got 2 boys, they are teenagers, so they are more autonomous, but they're still requiring some support. And everything starts there, right? Planning around my family. And then I will be running the Paris Marathon this year, so first marathon. And so it's a complete different beast than running half marathon or 20K. So I have actually diarized my running training in my diary to make sure that I, will have time for it. And then I'm making sure that I don't work too late at night or even during the weekends, which is something that I have been doing at some point in my career. In previous roles, I was working with, people that were in different time zones, especially in the US. I was traveling a lot. And that's exhausting. And that is exhausting. And I think I went a bit too far with, how much I could cope. And you know it when you're in that hamster wheel and you know that you have to stop, but for some reason you don't stop. And what helped me is when the pandemic hit us, I had no choice. I could not travel anymore.
You had to slow down.
I had to slow down. And at that point, I changed job and I went into a job that was less operational and that had a different timing, let's say, in what it has to deliver. So that really helped me actually take a step back and slow down to a more reasonable rhythm. So I really learned from that. And since then, I've made a hard decision with myself that I love my job. I love what I do. I'm really passionate about what I'm doing. I've got a bit of a good student type of mindset, so I want to do things well. I want to be here when people need me, but
sometimes you just have to put limits on.
Learn that to be the best I can be, I can't be always on. So, and I also take it seriously, the fact that I'm leading a team. I'm a leader at Sage and I need to role model a few principles, and sometimes you have to work hard and that's it, and it's how it is, but it can't be all the time. That's not sustainable, and that is not the right thing to show people, and including my kids. So I don't know that I have very practical tips to share, but I know that for the marathon I'm diarizing it. And for the rest, I'm trying not to connect after too late in the evening and during the weekend. Yeah.
I think with the times, we know ourselves better. We know our own limits, or physical, psychological limits. And then you realize that it was really powerful. And I totally agree with you that once you're a manager, you also have to set an example for your team. And if your team see you work all the time, being tired, exhausted, you cannot take right decision. You're showing an example of being a workaholic, and that's not really inspiring. So with the time, I think it's thanks to experience. When you're younger, you put yourself into work, you give everything you have on the table and so on. But one day your body can just break down, and you have to avoid this terrible point. And on a more positive note, I would say, Cora, do you have a specific interest? You were mentioning that you love sport. Did you have also other points of interest?
Yeah, I mean, I love traveling. I mean, it's something like, going into different countries and
you bring your kids with you?
Yeah. Especially in countries where you see, different type of landscapes, different cultures, people speak different language, where you basically have to be very humble because, you need to learn, how to, operate, I guess, in that country, how to behave. So I love that. I love, as well, music, and I love dancing. Like dancing is a real
That's why
real
Beyonce touched.
Yeah, Beyonce touched on many things. Love, dancing at, any time I can to release pressure. It's a good way as well. And I think, I'm being with my friends. I've got a group of friends that I've had for probably 30 years now.
30 years? Oh, okay.
Yeah, 25
long-lasting
years.
relationship too.
Yes, and, it's amazing to have
strong
those
bonds,
friends that I know I can, rely on and spend time with every weekend, and we just have fun.
That's a great way to release the pressure.
Yeah.
And do you have my last question would be perhaps a cultural crush, a book that you read recently, or a series, or even a podcast? Not mentioning my
well, of course, your podcast. Look, my favorite story of all times is Lord of the Rings.
Of course.
I could watch the movies, twice a year. It's been a long time since I've read it, but I read it in French, I read it in English.
Both.
Yeah. I might go back to reading it. It's been a long time, but I just...
Really impressive because it's a long story.
But I mean, the experience of the movies are really good, I think. But as always, the book have got so much more to
And did you
give.
start with the movies or the book first?
The books.
The books first. Oh, so you were a purist, really fan. Okay.
Well, my father is a big fan as well, so he was like, you need to read it. And I went into it. It's the first, I think 80 pages of the first one are quite hard, so you need to stick to it. And then once you've, read them, it's amazing.
Wow, okay. Yeah. Good reference. Totally love that. Thank you very much, Cora, for sharing your story. It was really fascinating. I love one of your punchlines you told us at the beginning of a podcast. Communication is the best skill to have in your bag. And I will stick to that.
Okay.
Thank you very much for sharing your testimonies.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks. Thank you. See you soon, my friends.
Bye-bye.